All right, let's get started with the contest, the weekly contest 393. I just shared the link. And let's go for it. Latest time, so let's start with Q1. Latest time you can obtain after replacing characters. So we're given a string S representing a 12-hour format time where some of the digits, possibly none, are replaced with a question mark. Okay, so this is a format, a description of the format. And we have to replace all the question marks such that the time we obtain, it's valid, of course, and then it's the latest possible. Return the resulting string. So here, for example, we have this input with a 1, then a question mark, and here another question mark and a 4. And then we can replace here. So here, since this is the hour, the maximum is 12. So, the maximum is 11 in this format. So that's why the max number that we can add here is, that we can set here is 1. And here, again, the max is a 5, so that's why the answer is 1154. So so maybe your first instinct to solve this problem might be to just have a lot of conditions, a lot of conditionals, a lot of if statements to handle, for example, the minutes, the units of the minutes or the 10th digit, and the same with the hours. But that would be too bug prone. So I think a better approach is to just go over all the valid times. We can go from the latest from the biggest to the smallest one, and we check if it's compatible with the pattern that we're given, which means that so if there's not a question mark, they have to be equal, right? And so how do we do that? Let's think about it a little bit. So one way to go over all the valid times is to just represent them as the number of minutes from. So the number of minutes from the beginning of the day, that's going to be 60 times 12. So we want to go from 60 times 12 minus 1 down to 0, right? So those are all the valid times. We want to go from the largest to the smallest, so that if we find a match, we just return. We just return because we're asked to return the largest one. And so let's say that we have 60. We have the number 63, right? So we want to now convert it into a string. So what we can do, we can divide by 60 to get the hours. So here the hours, it's going to be 1. And the minutes are going to be 3. So we format this as a string with a padding. And then we compare it to some let's say we have something like this. And so we compare these two, they are equal, so it's compatible. And here we have, this is a question mark, not a 2. And here we have a question mark, so this is valid. But here we don't have a match, right? We have a 0. Here it matches, but here it doesn't match. That means that this is not a possible answer. So that's what we're gonna do. I mean, the code should be pretty short, but I wanted to go over step by step what the code should do. So we go over the times from, like I said, from the last time of the day up to 0, and we go backwards. So the step is -1, and we are going to so this is going to be our, let's format it. Is format a key reserved word in Python? I don't know. Anyway, so let's format our time, and then we want to check if it's valid. I mean, if it's compatible. So that means that for all the digits, so there are 5 digits, five characters. We want either s of I to be equal to a question mark, or s of I has to be equal to x of I. All right, so if they all satisfy, then we found an answer and we return it. And I think we're guaranteed that there will be, I mean, there will be an answer, so we don't have to do anything else. And so here we have to implement the format. So we want the hour and the minutes of the times. So this is going to be integer division by 60, and then the remainder is going to give us our minutes on the hour. And here we have to use this format. I mean, hey, Ayo, thanks for the follow. Okay, so here we want to have the format, but we want to have it, so this is going to be H, but we want padding with 2 places. I think we have to do that, and here we want padding again with 2 digits, and I think this should be it. We pass the examples, and we're done. Cool. So yeah, I think a takeaway here, let me share my submission, but yeah, a key takeaway here is maybe sometimes it's better to do something, a brute force solution, that if you realize that so this number, the number of times is 60, 60 times 12 is only 720. So it's very small. So I think this is the fastest way, the simplest way to implement this without having special cases. All right. And yeah, it's sometimes cool to know this kind of formatting features of your language of choice. All right, so let's move on to question number 2. Here's the link. Maximum prime difference. So we're given an integer array nums and return an integer that is the maximum distance between the indices of two not necessarily different prime numbers. So this is interesting, not necessarily different. So that's the special case where there's only one prime number. So you must return 0, I guess, in that case. And here, okay, so this is pretty big, but the numbers are small. The numbers are up to 100, very small. And you're guaranteed that there's at least one prime number. That's good. So this problem boils down to testing primality. So testing if a number is prime. So we can do, there are many ways of doing this. I mean, but given that the numbers are small, maybe we can do a sieve of Eratosthenes. So remember how this works. This is something that is taught from a young age. So we have numbers starting from 2, which is the first prime number, the smallest prime number. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. And so we start from the first number that hasn't been crossed out, and that's a prime number. And then we cross out all the multiples. So 4 is a multiple, 6, 8, and 10. So none of them are prime numbers because they are divisible by 2, right? So now we move on to the next one that hasn't been crossed out, and then that number is a prime, and now we cross out all the multiples, but it turns out that 6 is crossed out, so we don't have to cross it out again. And here, so we cross out 9, and you get the idea. So here now 5 is the next prime number, and 10, we cross out 10, but it was already crossed out. And here, so these are the prime numbers in this range. So we're going to do that. So we're going to have is prime array. We want to check. We want to figure out what the max value is, and so we're going to set to true first all the numbers in the range, including the max value. And so let's say that 0 and 1 are not primes, and then we start from 2, and we can go up to the square root. So if it is prime, then we go over the multiples, and notice that we can start from the square because all the other multiples will already be multiples of previous primes. So we can do this, and then this means that this is not a prime because it's a multiple of p. Sorry, this is false. Here we increment, and now we have our sieve ready, so we can create. So obviously the largest distance is going to be the distance between the first and the last prime. So we can just go over the range, and if it's prime, if nums of I is prime, then yeah, I guess we can do the enumerate nums. And so here, if it is a prime, then we just keep the index of all the primes, and here we return the difference of the last index, so the last index minus the first index, and that should be good. Great. And yeah, and also you don't have to do the sieve. You could just factor, you could just check if prime by testing. So we can have a function is prime. So if n is less than 2, we return false. Then we go over, remember that you can try dividing by all the numbers less than the square root, less than or equal to the square root, because if the number is composite, if it's not a prime, then it should have at least one divisor less than or equal to the square root. And so here, if n is divisible by p, yeah, I guess p is not a good name because it's not, well, the first one that divides it will be a prime. So if that's the case, we return false. Here we increment d, and here we return true. Okay, so in this case we can remove all this, and we can just call the function. So this is a little more inefficient because we are trying all the divisors for each number, and there are up to 10 to the 5 numbers. So, but the numbers are up to 100, and this goes up to the square root. And in the worst case, that means that it's only doing 10 steps, right? Because the square root of 100 is 10, and so this should be fast enough. And it is, but let's compare the submissions. Well, it's not a big difference. It's not a big difference. Yeah, makes sense, I guess. Because this is only 10 iterations. That's pretty small. All right. So let's go to Q3, which is a hard. This is not common in LeetCode contests. Usually only Q4 is a hard, but in this contest, both Q3 and Q4 were hards. So let's see. K smallest amount with single denomination combination. You're given an integer array coins representing coins of different denominations and an integer k. You have an infinite number of coins of each denomination. However, you're not allowed to coins of different denominations. Return the kth smallest amount that can be made using these coins. And yeah, here this is very important. So notice that the number of denominations is up to 15, and the values of the coins are also small, up to 25. But K is big. K is up to 2 billion. And the coins are distinct. So usually when you see this kind of number, it means that you can do 2 to that number. So 2 to the 15. 2 to the 15 is around 32K. So you might have that in your mind. So there are many parts to this problem. So let's break it down. So on the one hand, so the first idea here is whenever you are asked to find the kth smallest, so the kth smallest problem. This is a very common problem in LeetCode. Return. So find the k smallest from some set. K smallest. And one general strategy to solve this is to, what if we could find find a way to count how many of these numbers are there. So let's say that we have some function count that has the number of numbers that are less than or equal to n, right? So yeah, maybe I should pay attention to the examples to make sure that you understand the problem. So here, if we have coins 3, 6, and 9, and so that means that coin 3 can produce multiples 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Then 6 produces this yeah, and here you have all the coins combined. The unique values that you can achieve are 3, 6, and 9. So 9 is the third. That's why it's underlined. So that is the answer. So let's say that we have coins 2 and 3. These are our so these are our denominations. And so if we have the numbers, so the coins can be even 1. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so let's say that we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, and so we're gonna have two. So we can form a 2 with the denomination 2, but we can also do 4. So all multiples of 2 are gonna be values that we can achieve, and then 3 then with the coin 3, we can achieve 3. We can also achieve, let's make this squared. So 6 we can achieve either with 3 coins of 2 or 2 coins of 3, right? And then we can achieve a 9, right? So why is it difficult to count here? So let's break down what would be this function here, the function that we want. So here we have 0 values that are less than or equal to 0. We have 0 values here, and now we have 1, right? And here we have 2, here we have 3, here we have again 3 because this is not a number that we can achieve, and here we have 4, and here 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? So in total there are 7 numbers, right? That's why the last one is a 7. And let's say that our k, and notice that we can do a binary search. Once we have this, so this is count, right? This is count. Once we have count, we can do a binary search to find the kth smallest, right? Let's say that in this example, k was 4, right? So the fourth one is this one, is 6, right? And this is the first time that 4 appears in the counts, right? So that means that you should binarize. So we can break down these values into the ones that are greater than or equal to k. So this is greater than or equal to k. This is 2. All of these are greater than or equal to k. And this is not. This is less than k. These are all less than 4. Okay? So when you have something binary, you can do binary search, right? So we can start with our low and our high pointers, indices. So, and we know, and we have the following invariant. We want high. So count of high is going to be greater than or equal to k. In this case, case 4. And then we want the count of low to be less than k, right? So at the beginning, this is true. So in 0, the count is always going to be 0. So we can initialize low to 0, and then we can search for a value of high that satisfies this condition. And then if we do the iterations of the binary search, we want to get to a place where low and high are consecutives, right? So this is our low after we've done all the iterations of the binary search, and this is our high. And so this is our answer. High is going to be our answer. So let's say that we let's write that down, that code. Let's forget about, so let's say that we have, let's say that we know how to count, so to speak, and so let's just use that. So this is very standard code. So let's do an exponential search to find. So while we want high to be greater than or equal, the count of high to be greater than or equal to k, right? So while it is less than k, we want to multiply it by 2. That's going to give us a high that is greater than. So here at this point, we know that count of low is less than k, and count of high is greater than or equal to k. Right? Because we know that the count of 0 is always 0, and we know that k is not 0. So this is true. This is our invariant. And now we want to iterate until they are both consecutive, so their distance is greater than 1. Once it is 1, it means that they are consecutive. And so now we get the min. This is how I do all binary search, by the way. This might not be what you've seen before, but I think this is very simple. And so here, if the count of mid is greater than or equal to k, then we want high to be equal to mid. Otherwise, we want low equal to mid. And here we return high. High is the value that we are looking for. Yep, that is correct. All right, so now we have to figure out how to do the count, right? So that's kind of the harder part of this problem. Once you have the binary search down. All right, so let's see here. Let's see this example. So here we have. So why is this hard? So it's easy to know how many multiples of a number there are. So it's just a division. So here, for example, the number of multiples of 2. So you get the last element. You make you do integer division. You get 5. So there are 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for 3, again, you do 10 divided by 3. And that's going to be 3. So there are 3 multiples of 3 in this range, right? So it's just a division. But why is this hard? Because, well, the problem is here, right? We have 6, which is a multiple of both. So if we just add up these numbers, we're going to double count. We don't want to double count. So maybe what we can do, if we figure out that there is one that is repeated, then we could do 5 plus 3 minus 1, because we double counted the 6, and that is going to give us 7, which is exactly right? So it's the number. So we are trying to figure out what count of 10 is, right? So we do this with this, then we somehow figure out that there's 1 we double counted and we subtracted, right? And how do we figure out that this is 1? Well, we want to count the ones that are multiples of both, right? So that is another way of saying that is that we want to count the multiples of the LCM. So the LCM is the least common multiple. Okay, so the LCM of 2 and 3, 2 and 3 is 6. And so now this 1 here comes from doing 10 divided by 6, which is 1. And so with this logic, we can solve problems that have two denominations. But what happens if we have more? What happens if we have more than two, right? Let's see. So this idea, so one way to think about what we have done here, so we added is in terms of Venn diagrams. Remember, so here we have A, and here we have B, and so A are the multiples of 2 in this example, and these are the multiples of 3. So we know that there are 4 that are only in this. Well, so we want to compute the union of these two sets, right? Of the union of the number of elements in the union. Okay, so what we did here is we counted the number of elements in A, and we added the number of elements in B, and then we subtracted the number of elements in the intersection. So this was 5, this was 3, and this was 1. And this is the diagram of this idea. So we have 1 in the intersection, but this idea can be generalized. Hey, smart coder, how's it going? So this idea can be generalized to more to more sets. So let's say that we have, well, maybe I should do this bigger. So let's say that you have 3 sets, right? So, and you want to compute the union, the number of elements in the union of the 3 sets. So this is A, this is B. Notice that now I'm thinking about sets in a general way. So I don't care about, for a moment, forget about the multiple thing. Let's abstract from those details, and let's think in general here. And this, in this case, the formula is so we add the elements in A, the elements in B, and the elements in C, right? But now, so for example, this this part right here, which is the intersection between B and C, was added twice, right? So let's subtract it. So we subtract, so for all the intersections, so A and B minus A and C minus B and C. Okay, so now we subtracted all the intersections, but what happens? So there is a problem, because the intersection of the 3 of them, so this part right here, notice that here we're adding it 1 time, here we're adding it 1 time, here we're adding it 1 time, the red part, and here we're subtracting it 1 time, here we're subtracting it 1 time, and here we're subtracting it 1 time. So in total, it canceled out, right? We added 3 times, we subtracted 3 times, so we're not counting the part. So that's why we now have to add it, right? And this is the formula for 3 sets. Finally. All right. This is the formula for 3 sets. Okay. But it turns out, but here, the problem here is that we have more. We can have up to 15, I think. But this idea generalizes, right? So it turns out that you can do this for any subset. So here, notice that here we're choosing 2 of the sets, and we are doing the intersection of 2 of the sets, and here we're doing 3 of the sets, but and here we're doing all the combinations of 2 sets, right? So what there's this idea is called the principle of inclusion-exclusion, and it's just this formula for computing. So in general, I don't think the notation. Yeah, don't worry about the notation. So it's the same idea. So we are adding all the combinations of the. We're considering all the combinations of the sets. And we want to know the intersection, the number of elements in the intersection of that combinations of sets. And so now we want to know whether we have to add it or remove it. And it turns out that this pattern, so here we had only one set in these 3 terms. Here we only had one set, and we adding. And here, when we had 2 sets, we were subtracting. But here, when we had 3 sets, we are adding again. And so this goes on. So depending on the parity of the number of sets that we are intersecting, that determines whether we are adding. So if it's odd, here it was 1. So for 1, it was we're adding, and for 2 we were subtracting, for 3 we were adding, for 4 we were subtracting, and so on. And so that should give us our solution, because so since there are only 15 denominations, the number of subsets is of non-empty subsets is 2 to the 15 minus 1, right? We want to exclude the case of the empty, where there's no set. And here, and this is like I said before, this is not a big number. It's 32K. So we can go over all the combinations of sets, right? And we know whether to add or subtract depending on how many we are choosing. And we can do this. One way to do this is to just use a bit mask, right? So you can do a bit mask. So if you have 3 sets here, right? If you have A, B, and C, 0, 0, 1 represents that we're choosing A, but we're not choosing B or C. And then the next binary number is 2, and so here we're choosing B. And then the next binary number is 3, so here we're choosing A intersected with B. Here we're choosing A. Here we're choosing. So notice there is a mapping. So each binary number maps to a set, a combination of the sets that we want to intersect. And so we go up to this, and we can go over all the combinations this way. So the code turns out to be pretty simple once you've done that analysis. So let's call this x, and we want this to be the number of coins. And so this is we're going to add to the result, and here we want the subset of sets to go from. So remember, we want to exclude the empty subset. So that's why we start from 1, and we want to go all over 2 to the n, excluding 2 to the n. And so now we want to know, so this determines a subset, right, of the sets of the denominations. So we want to find out the multiple, the least common multiple of all those numbers. So initially we initialize it to 1, and then we go over each of the coins, each of the denominations, and we check if that bit, the bit that corresponds to denomination I, we check if it is turned on, right? So this is the usual way that we check. So we shift a 1 I times, and then we AND it with the mask, and if that's different than 0, it means that that set is part of our subset. And so we compute the LCM, which is already available in Python. We don't need to worry about it. We add this coin, this denomination, to the LCM. Okay, and now once we have the LCM, we want to compute all the multiples that are less than or equal to x, right? And that's going to give us. But now remember that we need to know whether we want to subtract or whether we want to add. So remember that. So one way to do this is to do. I mean, there are many ways to do this. One way to do this is to do -1 to the power of the number of elements, and the number of elements in the subset, we can compute that with bit count, right? But remember that if it was 1, we wanted to add. So that means that we have to change the parity. So we want it to be even, or maybe even this. So with 1 we want to add, so we want it to be even, and so that's going to give us what we want. So let's see, and it passes the examples and accepted. Cool. Do you have any questions? I think I went over all the concepts. I think you, smart coder, I think missed the beginning. Gotta watch it, bot. Yeah, I went over first. I went over the binary search part and how this is a general pattern for finding the kth smallest element. Then I explained how to. I explained with this example how to do the binary. How to define. I defined this count function that give us the number of values that are less than or equal to some n. And then here I explain how to do the binary search the way that I do it, and then I explain how to count the multiples of each denomination and then subtracting the intersections, the common multiples. So yeah, so you can check out the bot, and maybe you can ask questions in the Discord. But I think it was pretty complete. That my explanation was pretty complete. So let me share. I already shared my submission. Yeah. So let me go to the last one. So this one, so okay, let me first read it. So minimum sum of values by dividing array. So you're given two arrays nums and values of length n and m respectively. The value of any array is equal to the last element of the array. You have to divide nums into m disjoint contiguous subarrays such that for the ith subarray, the bitwise AND of the subarray elements is equal to AND values of I. Alright. Return the minimum possible sum of the values of the m subarrays nums is divided into. If it is not possible to divide nums into m subarrays satisfying these conditions, return -1. Okay. So, how do we do this? So, do you understand the problem? First of all, let's make sure we understand the problem. So here, example 1, we have this array and we have this. So these are the AND values. So we have to partition the array. Here, the example, the way that they divide or partition the array is first this 1 and 4, and their AND is 0, right? So it corresponds to this 0 here. So the first part of the partition must have an AND value equal to 0. That's what they're asking for. And then we put this alone. Let's put this single element, and the AND value is 3. And this for each of the other ones. And that gives us 4 parts of the partition. And then we sum the last element of each partition each part, right? So here the value of this part is 4. That's why we have a 4 here, and so on. So this problem is a little tricky. So I think it's much simpler than the previous problem, but it's much easier. But it requires. Hey, Kidraki, thanks for the follow. But there's one observation that you need to make, and then it becomes very easy. Let me clear this up. So let's say we have example 0, 3, 3, 2, and then here we had 1, 4, 3, 3, and 2, right? So this is our nums. This is nums. And this is AND values. Okay, so notice that we can do, well, I think I didn't go over the, oh yeah, this is very important. So notice that the number of parts in which you have to partition is at most 10. So that's very suspicious. That's very small. So let's keep that in mind. And so notice that here, so maybe we can do some kind of DP, right? Some take it or leave it. Well, take it or leave it in the sense that we can either, we have two choices. So if we go from left to right and we are at here, so we can choose to either add, so we can choose to close the part here and start a new part in here, or not, right? Or not, or we extend this part and we move on to the next. So these are two options that are kind of a take it or leave it DP. But what is the problem here? So what would be our state in that case, in that kind of DP? Well, it would be, so first we would have to know where we are at. So we're at some index in nums, right? Then we want to know the number, the index of the part that we're in. So let's say this is some j. But then we also need to keep track of, we want to, when we decide, when we want to consider closing a part. So here we can do this. We can consider the close because the end of, so this is 1 and this is 4 in binary. So the and is 0. So it's the same as this. So that's why we can close this part right here. But for example, it wasn't possible to close it here because in that case the and would be 1, but it doesn't match what we have here, right? So we need to keep track of the and so far. Okay, so let's say we have the and here. The and of all the elements up to, so what is this? So this is the and of all the elements in the current part that we're considering. That let's say that it includes I. And so, okay, so these are our states, but what's the matter? So I can be up to 10 to the 4. There are 10 to the 4. So let's count how many possible values do we have. So this is 10 to the 4, right? The size of nums can be 10 to the 4. But then, so let's say we have 1, 4, 2. How do we know if we have to stop at 4 or continue taking till 2? Well, you don't know. You just try. That's why we're considering doing DP, right? You have two choices. You have two choices, and you try them both. You don't know. You don't know if you have to stop or not. You try both, right? So here, so we either close here, so we're at 4, right? Our and, so yeah, maybe I can. I wanted to explain something else. So here, let's figure this out. So here, this is our dp function, right? So for this, we're gonna call dp of 0 at the beginning, 0 because we're at the first part, and then the and is going to be 1, right? Because we want to include the current element, right? So this is our first dp. So notice that our and does not match this. This does not match the and value that the first part should have. So we don't have that option, the option of closing here. So let's say that this option of closing here is not available. So here we choose to continue. To continue with group with the first part. And so this is going to call dp of 1, and we're still at part 0. And here we do the and of 1 and 4, which is 0. So now we do have the option, because now this matches. So here we close. We decide to close the deal. So now when we close, we so let me think. So here we were, so yes, so we have to have this be 2. So now we are at element 2, and this becomes 1, and this becomes 3 because this is the and of the first element, right? Or we can not close it, right? And if we don't close it, then we again, so we move on to 2, but we're still at the first part, and here we have 0. So this is another option. The problem with this option is that we're gonna realize that if we make this longer than 2, then we're not gonna have enough elements to create the 4 parts. But we don't know that yet, right? And here again we do. So this is the tree of the DP, how the calls are made. So but I was getting to this. So let's count how many states we have. So here we have 10 to the 4 values for I. Then we have only 10 values for j, so that's good. But and, so what is this? So the and, so is this, so your first instinct might be the values can be up to 10 to the 5. So then if we can have any 10 to the 5 number, that means that this will be 10 to the 5, and so this is 10 to the 10 in total. And this is bad. This is slow. Okay, so this is not gonna work. But if we think about this a little bit more, we'll realize that this is not a good bound. So notice that the values that we have here, so if we are at position I of nums, so here, if we are at position I of nums, okay, so this is nums. So notice that the and must be a range, an interval that it's either this element or these 2 elements or these 3 elements. So it's going to be the AND of some range that ends at element I, right? But let's say that so if let's say that I is some number in binary like this, right? So when we AND it, so we AND it with some value here, and then so let's say that the value at I minus 1 is, I don't know, it's 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So when we do AND, this bit is going to turn off, right? So notice that every time we do an AND, some bits can be turned off and then they won't turn on again. So that means that the number of values that we have, the different number of values is going to be the same as the number of ones that we have in the binary. So this number, instead of being 10 to the 5, is actually it's actually around, so it's around 17, because that's the number of bits. This is bounded by 17. And that's the key to this problem. That's the key observation to this problem. Once you know that, it becomes pretty easy. It's just a simple DP. So this is the AND values, and we do we want the mean val for I, J, and the AND. Okay. So let's say that we have this already, and so we're gonna start with nums of 0, and we have to translate the infinity. We're gonna return infinity if we cannot do it. So if res is different than infinity, okay, let's do it this way. It's -1 if res is infinity, else is going to be res, okay? Okay, so now we have to deal with the memoization. So let's think about some edge cases, some base cases actually. So we need to close the last group on the last element, right? So if we already have an index that is outside of the number of parts that we want to that we have to choose, then that means that that's an invalid situation. Or if we AND this and it's different, so if our AND has one turns off one of the has a 0 in a bit that is a 1 here, then that means that we won't be able to match the AND values for this group, and in that case we return infinity. And now the other base case is when we're at the last element. If we're at the last element, we want to return if the AND value. That is so unintuitive. Which part? Can you be more explicit? Turning off bits. No, this is this idea is just that so if you have a number, so if your AND this AND, right? If your AND is this, right? But your target is this, then notice that since you have here you have a 0 and here you have a 1, and so if you keep doing AND to this value, this 0 will never turn to a 1, because when you AND, you only turn off bits. You only turn ones into zeros. So that means that here you'll never reach the target. If you have a 0 here that corresponds to a 1 in the target, you'll never reach it. So that then you don't have to go on. I mean, that's just an optimization. It's not really. I don't think you even need it, actually. The second one where you can DP on masks, because you can have all. Yeah, I went over that. I don't know if you saw it, but here I explained why your first instinct might be to think that, yeah, here the 10 to the 5, when I was counting the number of states, I said, well, this could be 10 to the 5, but that means that you have 10 to the 10 states, which is too slow. But then if you think about it, you only have a range from, if you're at element I, you only have a range that ends at I, and that can only turn off bits from nums of I. And so you actually have 17 different, you can have 17 different values for this I. And so that's why this works. I mean, yeah, this is the key of this problem. Once you realize that, it turns out to be just a simple DP. So here, what was I saying? So here, if the AND, so we can close this group if the AND matches what we have, and we are at the last group, then if this is the case, the value is the last element of the group, which is nums of I. Otherwise, we're at an invalid state, so we return infinity. And so here we can keep going. We can extend the current group, which is just moving on to the next element and staying on the same part, and then updating the AND with the next value. Or we can, if we currently match the value, then we can close this group. That's another option. And we can get we want to get the minimum. So here is the minimum val of, we get to the next part, and we add nums of I, which is the value of this group, and here we return res. So this is it. We pass the examples, and we got it. Nice. So yes, here I guess, yes, you can have the intuition pretty quickly. So this is a very common pattern. Can you? What? Can you write else return inf below line 12? No, no, no. No, we don't want. So we have two options, right? This option might not be infinity. This is a simple take it or leave it pattern. So you close it, you close the current part, or you don't, right? So this is the case where you don't extend the current part. And here is close the current part, right? The part of partition. Is it possible to use tabulation instead of memoization? That's an excellent question, actually, because it's not trivial. Because the end, let me think about it. Because the end is going to depend. So this is not in a simple range, right? This, you need Betsy for that? What do you mean? I don't follow. Here, yeah, I think you. No, I do bottom up DP as well, but this is a tricky case, I think, because the values of this end, the possible values of this end are not clear. It's not just a range. So I don't know how I would do that, actually, with bottom-up DP. If you have an idea, yeah, if you have an idea, that would be great. I would implement it, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know if it's possible. I don't think it's possible. But if you find out, let me know. But thanks for the question, Franco. That's an excellent question. Okay, so I think that's all I have for now. Is there anyone that I could raid? Let me see. Is there anyone lead coding? Streamed 1 hour above median of 20 minutes. That's not my median, man. Don't be mean. Ray Jones, thank you. It was quite educational. Well, thank you for watching. Solar Wind. Actually true. Come on, man. Yeah, I mean, it's not my fault that the previous contests were pretty simple. I mean, that's why the streams were shorter. I'm only doing the contest streams lately. I've been meaning to do more, but I don't know. I haven't found any kind of stream that I find learning Go. Minimum 1 hour streams. It's not my fault these problems are so damn easy for a Giga chat. No, it's not an arrogant comment. So I mean, I try to break it down to make it simple. I try to break it down for people who are not that experienced, and I felt that the previous contests did not require a lot of time to explain, to break down, so that's why they turn out to be short streams. Another virtual. This is not a big virtual. I don't do virtuals, but yeah, let me think about it. I promise you that I will be doing more content. But yeah, at least I'm doing the contest streams, even though this one was a little late. I'm doing them, so at least give me that. Okay, so let's rate the real Raymond Jones. Oh, is he? Did he went offline? Oh no, he is online. Okay, so let's rate him. This channel is intended for mature audiences. All right. What's your contest rate? Like my rating? It's around 2,500. So anyway, so thank you guys. Thanks a lot. 1400 max. Thank you guys a lot for watching, and I'll be doing more content. I thanks for the stream. Thank you.